pleased to introduce Bill Brierly. Bill is a graduate of the Colorado College of Economics and the University of Denver Stern College of Law. He has served in a variety of executive roles while at Teletech, where he and his teams developed several ethics and compliance initiatives that guided and empowered Teletech's employees to make sound, ethical decisions. In 2012, Bill joined CH2M Hill as Chief Counsel for Ethics and Business Conduct. It is evident in his achievement that Bill applies his passion for lifelong learning and teaching to find creative ways to integrate his understanding of economics and law. He brings real-world collaborative solutions to the ethical issues international businesses face. In Bill's own words, operating at all levels of our business with ethics and integrity is central to our success at CH2M Hill and forms the basis of our approach. Please welcome Bill Brierly.
Thank you for the introduction. It's great to be here. I thank the Monfort College of Business, the University of Northern Colorado, Don, Sharon. Thanks for having us out here. This is kind of close to my heart being out here, talking about ethics and ethics at UNC. I was driving up here and thinking that 30 years ago, I was in your position listening to Ann Garrison here at the University of Northern Colorado talk to me about macroeconomic theory. I still remember Ann's name, I still remember the class, and hopefully your experience here is the same as mine. It was a wonderful experience, and it's a great place to learn, and I think what they're doing here at the College of Business is fantastic. And the focus on ethics in today's world, as we get into, is something you're going to have to think about as you get into practicing in your corporate life. It's regardless of where you're working, regardless of what job you take, the issue of ethical business practices is going to be something you all face. Before we get started here, there's a couple game plan things I want to set down. 3 things I want you to take away from this talk. One is, what does ethics mean in a global economic environment? What is ethics globally? How do you define it? What do you look for in a company in terms of what makes an ethical company? And the third thing I want you to take away from here is, how can ethics serve as a differentiator for your business? First thing before we get into starting though, safety moment. It's something we do before every CH2M Hill meeting. It's part of what we've done since 1946. I'm going to start off with a safety moment here. We're getting close to winter. As you're going out in winter activities, whether you're shoveling snow, if you're older like me, go get a heart check before you go out and shovel snow. If you're a student, wear sunscreen, take breaks, drink water, all those kind of things that you need to do in the winter time to protect yourself. So that's, again, CH2M Hill safety moment, something we always do. Why focus on ethics? Who here thinks they're ethical? Raise your hand. Raise your hand if you think you're ethical. I hope I see a lot of hands raised, right? So why do we need to focus on ethics if we're all ethical? Because ethics isn't a concrete thing. Ethics isn't a static state. Ethics changes. Ethics changes based on your age. Ethics changes based on where you live. What you consider to be ethical changes based on how old you are, what you're doing. And more importantly, it depends on a number of external factors. Since we're at UNC, I have to talk about a couple of studies that have taken place on ethical behavior. I think one of them that's really good to talk about is the study by Darley and Batson. What they did is they took a group of seminary students and they put up a situation where the seminary students had to rush to an activity on campus. And they put kind of a homeless person who was in trouble on the pathway going to the presentation. What was interesting about that study is the people who were not in a hurry to get to the activity, 63% of those students stopped and asked the man if he needed assistance. And you would think a group of seminary students, they would always stop and give the man assistance, 63% did. If you're in a medium hurry, by medium hurry, they told them, you've only got 10 minutes to get there and give your presentation. That percentage dropped down to 45% of the students stopped and gave the man assistance. Those students in a high hurry situation, huge time pressure, only 10% of those students stopped to give the man assistance. Now, do those people all believe they're ethical? If they're in the audience, they raise their hands. But their ethics changed based on the time pressures they had. I'll tell you in business today, Time pressure is probably one of the biggest pressures you will face in conducting your business. I know from my standpoint, I operate 24/7. Hardly a day goes by when I'm not getting emails around the clock. And there's people asking questions all the time. You're going to face these external pressures as a person in business. You need to know how to respond to those. That's why talking about ethics is all important. And as I always say, there are few certainties in life. Ethics certainly is not one of those certainties. Talk about CH2M Hill, what's important about CH2M Hill, and more importantly, how CH2M Hill has changed and how we've had to adapt ourselves to the current environment. We were founded in 1946. These 4 or 5 gentlemen, 4 of whom, the Cornell, Howland, Hayes, and Merrifield, were in Corvallis, Oregon. Hill joined in later time. They focused on 4 things: deliver high quality work, take care of clients, do right by employees, and stay true to a culture of integrity and honesty. Critically important. What do you also notice about those 5 guys? Anybody? They're all white males from Corvallis, Oregon, or the Midwest. It's pretty easy to develop a system of ethics when everybody looks like you, and you're all living in the same place, and you're all living by what you consider to be the same values. Where's CH2M Hill today? We're an industry leader right now in consulting, design, build, operations, and program management. Headquartered in Englewood, we have over 28,000 employees, $7 billion in revenues. We're employee-owned, and we actively work in 60 countries across the globe. Here's a map of where we're located. Project offices are green. Current projects right now are in orange. Let me ask you a question based on this map. Do I have the same definition of ethics as my employees in Abu Dhabi? Do I, as a 50-year-old male in Colorado, have the same ethical understandings as somebody who's 20 years old in Djibouti? Probably not. Our life experiences are different, and what we consider to be appropriate behavior is different. So you've got to adapt your message to a global audience. But in delivering that message to a global audience, the key is staying true to the values that form the company. Staying true to those 4 key values. Act with integrity, act with honesty. And it's something that lives on in CH2M Hill today. Ethics in CH2M Hill today. We have a really strong foundation. Those 4 values that the founders put together live in what we call the Little Yellow Book. The Little Yellow Book is kind of our touch point, or our foundation of how we operate ethically as a business. But more importantly than the Little Yellow Book, every single person, from our CEO down to our person who's got a GED, working the oil fields in Alaska, believes in these core values. And we engage the employees in them. And I'll talk to you about how we engage them. Here's some things that we talk about in the Little Yellow Book. Integrity is the all-important prerequisite to employment. And I'll tell you, working with our recruiters, you don't get past the screen, and you don't get hired if you don't meet that first test. The staff's perception of leaders is a major factor in motivating and holding strong people. If you as a leader don't demonstrate these values, if you don't demonstrate that you abide by the rules, if you don't give a safety moment, when you give presentations, you get called out on it at CH2M Hill. It's pervasive in our organization. And the person closest to the action has the best chance of making the right decision. Think about that again. The person closest to the action has the best chance of making the right decision. For those of you who heard our speakers earlier today, Ed and Frank talked about some of the issues that they've uncovered. Who in those situations, with MEGA, with WorldCom, with Enron, who had the chance, the best chance to make the right decision about what to do when they were under pressure in terms of earnings for their companies? The CFO, right? The CEO certainly could have made the right decision, but I'll tell you, the controller could have made the right decision. A myriad of people on down the line could have made the right decision. They didn't. So your focus in terms of teaching ethics at a company is how do you make sure that those people take a break, stop, realize what they're doing, and make the right decision. I think Lee McIntyre, who's our current CEO, says it best. at CH2M Hill. This is what makes the difference at CH2M Hill. We focus on a person's character, professionalism, and ethics. We hire the most talented, qualified people in the industry, but whose conduct makes CH2M Hill proud. That's what we focus on. So from the founders talking about that to Lee McIntyre focusing on it right now, we're committed to those principles. I think we're even more committed to those principles as they apply in today's world in terms of diversity, inclusion. I don't know if any of you know much about CH2M Hill beyond the fact that we're this engineering company in Denver, Colorado. We're also the engineering company that as of January 1st, 2014, is going to have the first female CEO of a major engineering construction company in the United States. So we live by those principles, including in who we select as our CEO. How do you build on this foundation? So how do I get to people at every level of the organization and talk to them about ethics? Well, you've got to build on the little yellow book. Is a code of conduct, a little yellow book, a policy, are only those things on paper. If people don't actually believe them, and people don't incorporate the learnings into their daily lives, then people can't act ethically, and they can't make the right decision at the right time. So we have employee business conduct principles, available in 8 different languages. Again, you can't bring it all in English and have a guy in Abu Dhabi who doesn't speak English that well understand it. He's got to read it in Arabic. Same with the guys in France. They're going to want to read it in their native language. Make it available. Supply chain principles. What's important to us at CH2M Hill is not only that we abide by these principles, everybody who works with us abides by the principles. Not just employees, but our vendors, our contractors, the people who supply us toilet paper have to sign up to the same set of standards. Because quite frankly, we don't want our toilet paper supplier to be using human trafficked labor in producing their products. That's critically important to us. Company-wide engagement. You've got to get everybody involved in it. We have annual EBC training. We get 100% participation in our EBC training. When I left the office yesterday, I had about 230 people out of 28,000 who hadn't completed the EBC training that was rolled out in May, and we're in the process of notifying their supervisors. If they don't answer those responses, it'll go up to the CEO of the company, who will send them a personal letter about completing this. If they don't complete it, they'll face some other actions like failure to get bonuses, raises, and even termination if you don't complete it. It's that important to us. The guideline. What's the guideline? The guideline is our hotline for employees to call in and talk to us about issues that they see on the workplace. We get about 300 calls a year on the guideline. We investigate every single one of them, and we report back to the employee the results of the investigation. That feedback is critical. The employees have to know that we're focused on what they're doing, that we're focused on their concerns, and that we're responsive to their concerns. If we don't do that, then we failed in our ability to have employees believe that we really take these things seriously. What would you do? We put out a number of publications called What Would You Do? That asks people certain questions based on situations that they'll face, and asks the question, what would you do? It's the most popular thing that we have on our corporate intranet. Every time we roll it out, we get over 1,000 responses automatically. It's a great tool, people love it, and it keeps them engaged with ethics on a daily basis. We also put out ethical articles, FAQ pages, how do I follow this policy, what do I do, those types of things. And we make it easy for people to understand what we're talking about. If you don't make something easy to understand, it becomes very difficult to follow it, because you have to go through this myriad of calculations on what the right answer is. If you make it easy to understand, if you give people examples, it's easy to follow. Ethics Month. Every May is Ethics Month at CH2M Hill. So we take the Ethics Week concept and we stretch it out into a month, where we have activities every month. It's our EBC rollout. This year we focused on conflicts of interest. Every year we focus on something different. Next year we'll probably focus on federal procurement issues, or next year I should say. So we try to get people engaged in this process on a monthly basis. Critically important to CH2M Hill is staying current on trends that face companies like ours ethically. We're leading the way in worker welfare and the fight against human trafficking. I was talking at lunch today about one of the initiatives we're involved in overseas. We are the program manager for the Qatar Executive Committee to do the 2022 World Cup build-out. So Qatar was awarded the 2022 World Cup Games in 2022, and we are the program manager to help them build all the stadia, all the infrastructure, and all of the facilities that they need to host that event. What's unique about working in Qatar? I don't know how many of you are up to date on Middle East human rights issues or worker welfare issues, but there's a significant concern in the Middle East over worker welfare issues. CH2M Hill was hired in part because of our commitment to ethics and because of our ability to work with the client in handling these issues. And we're taking that client-based approach and we're putting it across the enterprise. So every January now is Worker Welfare Month at CH2M Health, where we're focusing people on how do you identify situations where a subcontractor may be using traffic labor, they may be using slave labor. The common thing that happens are for subcontractors and contractors to take the passports of individuals and keep those passports until the project's over so that those people cannot leave. They frequently keep the wages. They put them in conditions that are just humanly unacceptable. It doesn't only happen in the Middle East. It happens here. It happens in Brierly, Colorado. It happens in Nebraska. It happens in New Orleans. It happens in Europe. You name it, it happens. Our job as a company is to train our employees how to identify it, how to report it, and most importantly, how to prevent it. Because, as far as CH2M Hill is concerned, we want no part in contractors who are engaging in that behavior. Actually, let me go back here. The ultimate goal of what we're trying to do in our program is building on the Little Yellow Book, is teaching every employee the CH2M Hill way, and understanding that every significant decision that you make as a manager, as a CFO, in my role, as a lawyer, as the CEO, it has an ethical dimension. You know, if you're going to terminate an employee because the employee is not performing properly, there's an ethical dimension to that. Are you treating that employee the same way that you've treated other employees in the same situation? What about that person's family? How are you going to handle that discussion when it comes up? You know, how are you going to explain to your other employees why you decided to terminate this employee? Those are all ethical decisions you have to make before you make that decision. The same way when you're booking an accounting entry in terms of work that has come in, you know, from a revenue recognition standpoint, do you have the sufficient documentation, evidence, the fact that you've received that revenue? Can you recognize it? You've got to go through that decision tree to make sure that you're making the right decision. And it matters whether, again, you're working on the oil fields in Alaska, whether you're working in the boardroom, whether you're working as an accountant at CH2M Health. Every decision you make has got an ethical dimension. And you've got to make sure that people understand the touch points to get to, and that they also have help. Because I guarantee you, if WorldCom, if Enron had truly had a program of ethics in place from the management on down, I don't think those problems happen, because I think they find a way to get around them, or more importantly, they admit when they've made mistakes, and they fix the mistakes. You'll see in each one of those, and I know, Ed, you covered it in Frank, the problem with these guys, they get in over their heads, they start making decisions to meet expectations of people outside the companies, or even people inside the companies, and they don't stop to think, is this really the decision that we need to make? My job, and the job of every executive and every employee at CH2M Hill, is to make sure each of us understand you've got a resource to go to, and you've got someone to talk to when you're facing those situations. It's not just me, though. There's a whole bunch of people that I depend on to get this done. Government contract and audit, health and safety, HR, government affairs. All of us work together to make sure that this program works at CH2M Health. And why does it work? Because it's been the same since we started the company 67 years ago. We haven't strayed from those values, nor do we stray from them today. I was talking to Sharon at lunch today. Lisa Speranza, who runs our operations and management business group, who's come up to UNC and spoken before, was telling a story about meetings in which people will call out in a meeting, well, that's not very yellow book, that's not very little yellow book, is it? I've heard that statement before, because it's everybody challenging somebody on the decisions they're making against the touchstone of our company and how we operate. What do our employees tell us? Does it work within CH2M Hill? What do people say about it. You know, you tend to think of employees as people who just kind of come in, maybe stay a few years ago. CH2M Hill's not that way. We have employees who've worked with us 30 and 40 years. And I'll tell you what's interesting now, we're in the midst of a change at CH2M Hill. Because we've had so many long-term employees, those guys are retiring, and we've got a bunch of guys your age coming into the company and trying to work with us. What are those employees telling us about what we're doing? I'm proud to tell my kids I work at CH2M Hill. I'm proud to do work on some of the most difficult projects around the world and know that we'll do it right and stand behind our work. I left my last employer because I was asked to do things I was not comfortable doing. That does not happen at CH2M Hill. I like working for a company that takes diversity and inclusion seriously. And I'll tell you that, I've got 100 more examples of that at the company. We just recently, as part of Ethics Month, did a survey of employees. Do you know what the little yellow book is? 99% of people do. I got 1% I got to figure out why they don't know what the little yellow book is, but I'll look at it. Have you read the Employee Ethics and Business Conduct Principles? Have you actually read them? Not just taken the test. Have you read them? 97% of our employees have read them. 3% haven't. Yeah, I got to look to it. Do you think CH2M Hill is serious about its commitment to ethics and integrity? 94% yes. And I'll tell you, in any corporate survey, 94% is pretty good. It's not good enough for us, though. I want that at least 99. Ideally, I'd like it 100. I don't think I'll get 100, but I'll get as close as we can over the next year. It's that important to us, and it's that important to our employees. CH2M Hill Ethics in Action. I always say this, and I think it's true. The measure of the ethical stature of a company is how employees respond when things go wrong. This morning, you heard a host of scenarios in which employees made the wrong decision when things went wrong. At WorldCom with Bernie Evans, there's a reason that they did what they did. They were on a record of success that they and the market expected them to continue. When things started to go south, what did they do? Did they come out and tell people we're not doing as good a job as we think we should do? No, they cooked the books. You see it all the time too. A sales team overseas. Sales team has goals they need to make. Their bonus compensation, the Christmas presents for the kids, is all based on whether they meet their numbers. What do? They start paying off people to take the product. They make the wrong decision in that choice. Things were going wrong. They weren't meeting their goals, but they've decided to do it in an unethical way. Now they'll rationalize it, and if you look at any of the studies, I think I referred to the Messick study earlier, people will rationalize as to why they do it. You know, I did it because I knew the company was not meeting its goals, and I was responsible for making sure the company was meeting its goals. So the fact that I bribed somebody to get a contract is okay. Because it's for the good of the company. It's not good for me. That doesn't cut it. That's making the wrong decision when things go wrong. Let me tell you about CH2M Health. It's a story I'd love to tell. I love to talk about when things go wrong at CH2M Health. It's one of the things I am hired to do. It's one of the things I've had to do. I was in Miami and New York last week talking to people about a couple of things that went wrong. But I love to tell the story. Here's why. We do the right thing. We had a project at Elmendorf Air Force Base where we were building hangars. We were designing and then turning the designs over to a contractor to build hangars for those gigantic jets that transport tanks. It's like the C-130s. They're gigantic structures, some of the biggest structures in the world. Well, we had an engineering team that was using a software product to design the hangars. And they specified the size of bolts to go along the juncture of the support rafters to the sides of the building. And they specified a bolt size there. They then used the program to specify the bolt sizes at the connection points everywhere else in the hangar. The program was supposed to say, you need a stronger bolt up here because you're going to have a spill load. But the program didn't say that, so we went ahead and we designed the structure with the smaller size bolts. We had built one hangar, there were 3 hangars we were building. We're in the process of building hangar number 2. One of our engineers was up there just taking a look at the site, just to see what was going on, and he looked up at the ceiling or the roof of the first hangar. And he noticed something didn't look right. Now he knows that there was a whole team of engineers who had designed this, guys that he's colleagues with, guys that he has worked with for a number of years, but he just saw something wasn't right. So he went back and he took a look at the actual drawings that we produced. And he noticed that the bolt size specification that we had for the intermediate connection was wrong. So we went to our CEO at the time, Lee McIntyre, and said, Lee, we've got a problem. We've got this hangar here where we specified the wrong bolt. He says, now, I think it'll survive. I mean, we've had a couple of snows and it survived, and unless we get a really big snow, it's not going to pose an issue, but it's not right. What did we do in that situation? Did we say, hey, look, we're never going to get a snowfall that big. We're never going to have a 1,000-year flood, right? We had a 100-year flood in '76. We're not going to have a 1,000-year flood. And it's just like that. No, we went to the client. We told them. We designed this wrong, and we want all of your guys out of the hangar. And by the way, we're going to have to stop construction on the second hangar. We went back and we fixed the first hangar. We fixed the second hangar. We redesigned the third hangar. And every single project that we designed using that software, we went back and spot checked those projects just to make sure we didn't have the same issue. That to me is the hallmark of an ethical company. That's why I love standing up here and talking about this for CH2M Hill, because we make those decisions. Why do we make those decisions? Because we believe in the principles. Every employee does. We talk about the yellow book. We talk about the employee business conduct principles. It comes up in meetings. It's part of who we are as a company. That's really important. And it's really important as you guys are looking at what companies do you want to work for. Do you want to be put in a position where you have to decide, am I going to keep my job, or am I just going to go along with what my boss says to do? Or are you going to look at a company where you feel confident enough to say, I don't think this is right. I know you guys are professional engineers, and you're friends of mine, colleagues of mine that I've worked for 30 years, but I think you messed up on this project. You got to look at a company where it's okay to do that. Love telling that story. Does a commitment to ethics and integrity matter at the end of the day? So we made that decision. It cost us a lot of money, right? It probably wasn't a really popular decision in terms of stock price and all that. It probably wasn't a popular decision for the guy who had to turn his colleagues in. Probably wasn't really a comfortable decision for someone to make in terms of bonuses and all that. But does it matter? Yeah, it does. Why does it matter? Here's our global reputation for CH2M Hill. For Dantos, independent analyst firm. We're a leader in sustainable practices. We've won the Catalyst Award for the Women's Leadership Initiative. And again, we're the first major engineering company to appoint a woman as a CEO. 100 best companies to work for 6 times. Covalence, we're in the top quintile of companies. And we're compared against, it's interesting, we're compared against a lot of construction companies, pure construction companies. So if you take us as an engineering firm, we're at the top of the list. World's Most Ethical Companies, 2009, 2010, 11, 12, 13. It's a pretty good track record. And featured a great workplace. Where do we lead in markets and leadership positions? We're number 1 in program management, environmental firms, environmental design, green firms, petroleum maintenance, pipeline design, sewer and solid waste, site assessment and compliance, water treatment desalination, working in non-US locations. Do you get that reputation? Do you get those rankings if you make the wrong choice at Elmendorf Air Force Base? Do you get those rankings if you make the wrong choice about how you handle a complaint from a client on a job site? No. You're just another company trying to do work, trying to make money, and probably not doing a great job of it. CH2M Health focuses on these things, and because of it, we're a leader in what we do. And it cascades throughout the organization. Why else is it cool? Because we get to work on some of the greatest projects in the world because of this reputation. And this is the part about CH2M Hill that we also love talking about, is the work that we do. All of this work that we get is in part because of our technical excellence, but I'll tell you, there are a lot of other great engineering companies out there. Our competition, they have great engineers, great companies, But I'll tell you what really sets us apart is CH2M Hill's reputation for doing the right thing when things go wrong. London Olympic and Paralympic Games. I don't know how many of you guys saw Missy Franklin and the London Olympics and all that. We were the program, we led a consortium of people that did all the program design for taking what was the East End of London, kind of a bombed out place with World War II munitions unexploded in there, and rats and weird snakes and all kinds of stuff. And we turned it into the Olympic Park. That's a cool project. That's a project you don't get if you don't have the reputation of excellence and a reputation of doing the right thing. BP Exploration Alaska Arctic Oil Fields. I know for me, that's, I'm not a big advocate of oil exploration in the Arctic, but I'll tell you, the work that we do up there shows you that you can do it the right way. We were hired by BP to come in and consult with them and work with them on drilling in the Prudhoe Bay area the right way. And when you go up there, when you see guys park their trucks, instantly an oil pan goes under there to catch any oil that might drip from the truck. There's that much sensitivity in the environment and that much care that we take in doing it. Why did BP pick us? Because they know we value these types of behaviors from our employees. Now, I said before in the slide, we have everybody working for us from PhDs to GEDs. So every employee, regardless of whether you're a PhD candidate or a PhD holder, down to an employee who's only got a GED working for us, they take this stuff seriously. And they take it seriously in the work that they do day in and day out. That's why BP picks CH2M Hill to do this. It's a really cool project up there. And if you want to work in a company where you feel good about being involved in projects, this is the kind of stuff you get involved in when you pick a company that focuses on ethics like this. Hanford Central Plateau Remediation Site. This is a really interesting project. Hanford was the, you guys are familiar with the Manhattan Project, right? Building of the nuclear bomb. This next to Chernobyl and now Fukushima is the most polluted 586 square miles of land in the world because of all the nuclear activity that went on there. CH2M Hill is the leading contractor for cleaning it up. Again, it's a project covering 586 square miles. We've got 2,000 employees up there involved in some of the most intricate work, not only from a design perspective, but from a performance perspective. How do you make sure that you're cleaning up things in a safe manner that doesn't hurt people while they're doing it? And how do you design processes that make sure you can do it in a way that actually gets rid of the waste rather than just moves it to a different place where it becomes a problem somewhere else? Why do you hire CH2M Hill? Because you know CH2M Hill will do the right thing. You hire CH2M Hill because not only will we provide the technical expertise, but when something goes wrong, we'll take care of it. This is another time I get to talk about something interesting about CH2M Hill. We had an issue at CH2M Hill where a group of employees committed time profile. We worked with the U.S. Attorney's Office in solving the issue, and we had to pay a large fine, a large penalty because of it. But just recently, that happened in March of this year. In October of this year, we were awarded a 5-year, $2.1 billion extension through the Department of Energy for the work at Hanford. Why do you get that? Because we handled it the right way. Again, the ethics that we focus on as a company leads to business development. It leads to opportunities you otherwise don't have. If we had handled Hanford wrong, I wouldn't be up here talking to you about getting a contract extension. I'd be up here talking to you about a situation where we did the wrong thing and what happened to the company because of it. It also means that we get employees who are really interested in making sure that we leave a mark on the world or leave the world a better place than we found it. Engineers Without Borders. We were founded corporate sponsor in 2003. It focuses on improving the lives of people in developing countries by bringing our engineering expertise to help out with projects there. It's a great project. There are a ton of people involved with it. We've given 92 grants to people to travel, our engineers to travel, and to help people out. Over $350,000 of corporate commitment. Water for people. If you think about the future of the planet, you'll hear a lot about this, guys, in the next few years. Food, water, energy. It's the food, water, energy nexus. What are we as a world going to do to solve food shortages, water shortages, and energy consumption and demand. How do we figure this out? As a society, both the United States, how do we figure it out globally? Water for people is one of the things that we help those developing countries figure out. Access to clean water is one of the things that keeps developing countries from moving up into secondary and primary status. For females in developing countries, access to clean facilities is critically important for females to move ahead in society. Water for People does that. One of our former employees was a founding member of Water for People, and as a company, we've given over $1 million from our employees, just direct contributions to help this project, and every year we have engineers go all over the place to help with projects for Water for People. But realistically, what's the most important thing about the way we do business? We get the world's best employees. You look at the employees that we have, you look at one of the best places to work in America, you look at the reputation we have for ethics. Our ethical program and the way we look at ethics is differentiating us in the market. Not only for the market for business, but more importantly in the market for talent. I don't know if you guys know this, but we're at the kind of the precipice of a change in the labor force across the board. The post-baby boom guys are retiring, and you guys are filling the places. And you know what? You've got a lot of choice in where you can work. Because as opposed to when I was coming out of school, and a lot of guys coming out of school, we were kind of restricted in what was available to us. Right now, CH2M Hill, in fact, at that time, when I was coming out of school, was about $500,000, primarily U.S. contractor doing water work. Right now, we're a global company. You could come work at CH2M Hill. You could be working in Englewood, Colorado. You could be working in Abu Dhabi. You could be working in Singapore. You could be in Djibouti. You could be on Sakhalin Island in Russia if you want. I don't know why you want to do that, but you could do it. It's just one of the things that you can do at CH2M Health. The opportunities are boundless, which means we want to pick the best people as a company. How do you pick the best people? You let people know by working here, you're going to get more than just a paycheck. If you think about it in terms of what are the differences between the baby boomers and your generation, there's a lot of differences. We were talking at lunch today. Do you consider a Facebook post that somebody posts that's kind of stupid to be a job killer? It's just somebody being stupid, right? Older generations would say, why would you ever do something that's stupid? That's a prime difference. I'll tell you one of the key things that you guys have in common. You both want a purpose with the work you do. You want to believe that you work for a company that stands for more than just making money. You want to feel good about where you work. You want to make money, but you want to feel good about what you're doing too. You're going to choose the companies that deliver on that promise. When we're in the market talking to people, our reputation and the program that we have on ethics is one of the things that makes people decide to come to CH2M Health. It's critically important to what we're doing as a company to replace the engineers who are retiring, who've been with us for 30 or 40 years, and getting the new generation of engineers who are going to address those three problems in. Because I'll tell you, engineering guys, engineering companies, they're going to help with those three issues on the food, water, and energy nexus. We're at the forefront of those issues right now with a number of our clients. And it's folks like you, be it whether you're an engineer or whether you're in a support position like me, we're going to help fix those problems. But as a company, we've got to make sure we're getting the right people. That's ethics at CH2M Hill, and ethics is a market differentiator. I love talking about it. It's one of the passions I have in life. And again, I think hopefully you can tell that CH2M Hill is a company that not only lives by it, but every time I get out and talk about it, I feel better about what we're doing as a company, and hopefully that comes across to you. So let's open up to any questions anyone has. Come on, we gotta have some questions. Back there.
Yeah, with the hangar example in Elmendorf in mind, how many ethical decisions do you think are driven by just avoiding future lawsuits or just doing the right thing?
Great question. So the question was, for those who may not have heard it, thinking back in Elmendorf, how many of the decisions that we make are driven by avoiding lawsuits or just making the right decision to do the right thing? Great question. I'll tell you, it's doing the right thing. Having been in those decisions, frequently I'm involved in the groups making those decisions. It's never about avoiding a lawsuit. It's about doing the right thing with the client and with the project. And I can firmly stand up here and tell you that that's the decision-making process that goes on. And I'll tell you what interestingly happens about that. I think our relationship with the Air Force is better today than it was before because of the way that we stepped up to the plate for them. And we didn't leave them with a saggy hanger and a lawsuit. So, and it does avoid lawsuits by doing that. But if you think about lawsuits and avoiding lawsuits as a business, you're going down the wrong pathway. Do the right thing. Any other questions? All right, guys. Got to have a question. Over here.
In regards to your guys' core values and being an international firm, you'll inevitably come into conflict with some regions, either religious or cultural beliefs. How do you guys handle that? Do you attempt to change the local culture, or do you just not develop their interest in that region?
There are certain regions where just from a standpoint of doing business, some of the business practices there as an American company, you just can't do business because of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act exposure and things like that. But what we try to do in those areas is pick the right people. Because even if you're doing work in some of the world's most troubled areas, because we've done work in Afghanistan at Bagram Air Force Base, we've done work in Pakistan, we do work in Djibouti. So again, these are some of the areas of the world that have some of the most difficult problems out there and have some of the biggest corruption exposure. You've got to find the right people. And I think it goes back to what we were talking about, is making sure as you're going through the process that you're finding the people that believe in doing business the way that we believe in doing business. And you can find them if you do your work. Culturally, you just adapt. It's why I said ethics the same for everybody. It's not. In Abu Dhabi, here's a perfect example. Do you think it's ethical for a guy to have more than one wife? Some people say, no, that's not ethical. Well, I'll tell you what, in Abu Dhabi, you can have up to 4 if you treat each one of them equally and provide for them equally. So you've got a conflict there in terms of what are ethics. As a company, we don't get involved in that, but we get involved in making sure that we get people who make the right business choices and use ethics in applying those. Yeah, great question. Sir?
With the situation in Hanford, Washington, being that exposing nuclear waste is such a difficult thing, if it's not too personal, what kind of solutions were you guys able to come up with to actually do it the right way?
Yeah, it's a great question. So at Hanford, what are we able to do to make sure that we're disposing of the nuclear waste the right way? Again, I'm maybe getting beyond my expertise here as a lawyer / amateur engineer. I can't fix a bike, but that's about all I can do. Our guys have developed these water treatment methods. A lot of what we're doing at the plateau area is treating water, groundwater, that the way Hanford site is situated, it's right on the Columbia River. So, to do nuclear processing for fissile material, you need a lot of water. So they tend to be located next to these beautiful river basins. We're right next to the Columbia River, so a lot of what we have to do is filter the water, remove the contaminants, and ship those off-site. So we've developed a methodology for doing that, and are working with some of the other contractors out there to build a plant to process that wastewater. But it's our engineers who've come up with the solutions to figure that out. In fact, some of our guys have flown over to Fukushima to help them work with some of the issues that they're facing on how to clean up that area. Because I think that's now probably the second most polluted area of land in the world. Chernobyl's by far the worst. But great question. And that's, again, it's what makes you feel good about a company like CH2M Hill and that we're hired to do those kind of projects, because they trust that not only do we have the expertise, but we've got the kind of ethical backbone to make sure we do the right things. Somebody else had a question right here.
You're talking about the importance of identifying those ethical partners. How do you do that, especially overseas, where you may not have the connections for reputation-wise?
Great question. It's a project I was just involved in this year. So the question is, how do you make sure you're working with the best partners overseas and that those partners maintain their ethical standards? A couple of things we do. We have a service that we subscribe to that sends out questionnaires to these companies that they have to fill out. And we kind of break them down by global supplier, regional supplier, local supplier, and local supplier. The global suppliers would be your Oracles, your Microsofts, Dells, those kind of companies. They're one level of review. Regional suppliers would be somebody who might supply office paper, Staples here, and it might be a Staples affiliate or another company in the UK or something like that. They have a different level of review. Local and local contractors, we actually have a procurement department that goes in and takes a look at how they operate their businesses. And we're just beginning now, we're implementing a new kind of automated process to get a lot of that done, so that we have the backup to show that we've done it as well, and we can demonstrate that. We're also working again on educating our employees about what to look for in suppliers that are engaged in behavior that we don't find acceptable. And then a big part of that is the focus on human trafficking and labor, kind of worker welfare issues. Great question. And it's something we just worked on this year to kind of refine the process. Got time for one more question, right up here. Sir?
So, is CH2M Hill helping Yemen with their water crisis? Just kind of wondering.
Oh, what was that again?
You were talking about water crises, and I was wondering if CH2M Hill is going to help Yemen at all with their water crisis.
Not that I know of. I know my guess is that some of our guys are consulting on it. And a lot of the time we will consult with people on those issues. It's not necessarily a project we're engaged with, but they just need our expertise in defining what the project's going to be, and we'll work with them on that. But we typically get called in on a number of these issues in terms of water. We're one of the world's, we do over $2 billion a year in water and wastewater treatment business throughout the globe, most of it here in the United States. So frequently, like with Hurricane Sandy, a lot of water issues. There we were working significantly on that project. I know we worked extensively with Governor Hickenlooper on helping him with the recent Colorado flooding and what we're going to do there. So we do get involved in those kind of things. Absolutely. Well, I think we're at the end of the time here, so I thank you all for attending. I know it's an after lunch issue, but I hope it kept you awake, and I hope